Thank you very much, Chama, for that introduction, and thank you, Philippa, for sharing such an insightful experience. And it's quite an envy seeing how much you've succeeded at your tender age. It's really inspiring to the other youth who are also probably wanting to pursue the same journey. So maybe I'll also just start with my introduction. I know I was there yesterday. For those who were here yesterday, we talked a little bit. I had a session with one of the participants, and we were cut short. So I hope we'll have another session, because continuity of sharing knowledge is one key thing that is really going to develop youth in whatever they're doing. So I'm originally Kenyan. I born here, bred here, and studied here. But I feel like I've traveled around the world virtually because of connecting with people from different countries. And so I tell this to the youth that as long as you can't travel to across the border, but you can connect, count yourself lucky, because in the era of connectivity, you can actually learn what's going on in Portugal, in India, in the US, in Canada, name it, virtually, and you can connect and know what's happening. So that's how much I've traveled, by just connecting with people virtually and having discussions on their experiences. So as you got it, I am 32 years of age, but count myself still very youthful in that I quite interact a lot with the youth in different areas. And I really hope that I stay that young, because probably some of the things that I underwent as a youth, I wouldn't also need somebody else to go through them, because if we don't share where we failed and where we succeeded, people might not learn and really venture into what they want to do better for this world. So currently, as you know, I work for a community foundation called the Kenya Community Development Foundation. But before then, I've worked with other NGOs like the Aga Khan Foundation. I've worked with humanitarian organizations like the Kenya Red Cross Society. I have worked with the community-based organizations, some of them that are actually youth-led, and that's when I had interest in them. I acknowledge that youth can do much greater things. I know our curriculums in terms of the education system does not expose youth and give them the power that they can do much. So it's always go to school, go to university, and then get a job in the government or get a job in an NGO and support the community. By that time, you're way above your youthful age. But what if this is inculcated in our curriculum, so that a youth can know that they can actually respond to climate change while they're still at a tender age, probably in a lower grade, or they can do much greater when the age of Filippo, who started working with an NGO at the age of 17 and 18, is still engaging the government. So my one big message is that you cannot negotiate when you are off the table. You negotiate when you are on the table. So if you want to negotiate about climate change, if you want to negotiate about children's rights, you cannot be on the other side and try and say that you're negotiating for children's rights or youth rights. Be on the table. And how do you be on the table? You be on the table by always interacting with decision makers, with right holders, with the government. That is when they're going to hear your plight. But you cannot do this on the streets and say that the youth are not accessing proper resources. Nobody's going to hear you on the streets. Can you try and buy in the government or your parents to understand, to listen, by bringing your negotiation skills on the table? My experience over COVID has been shaped by what I underwent as a youth. And I share this because it's one of the things that I probably also acknowledge my parents for having exposed me in how do you interact with the elderly so that they understand your challenges. If I was not exposed to that at a tender age or at a youthful age, I think my experience during this COVID would probably be worse. There are those things that I anticipated I would have achieved during COVID period. had planned a lot of meetings, which some of them were cancelled. I had planned a lot of discussions in the community, which were cancelled. I had planned to also prepare some grants for community-based organizations, which were cancelled. So if I wasn't prepared well at a tender age, probably I would have undergone frustration. But how do you tackle challenges and find out how you can respond to those challenges without being frustrated? Probably all of you at the moment understand that quite a number of youth have either gone mental cases or have even committed suicide because of the pressure. Nobody prepared them on how they're going to handle different challenges. And challenges for me are what really drive us. If you're not able to respond to a challenge like, let's say, unemployment, then in future, how are you going to handle issues like COVID? Because COVID is just one phase that we have experienced, but there could be bigger challenges that are coming our way. And as youth, we still have a long way. Probably the parents or elders who are there at the moment will not be there. So if you cannot manage challenges at a youthful stage, let nobody lie to you that in future you will be able to handle those challenges when you're already grown up. So how do we respond to challenges at youthful age? If it's unemployment, how are we going to engage with the youth and make sure that they address the issues of unemployment or probably psychosocial mental problems in schools, bullying? How do the youth deal with bullying? These are some issues that if you not deal with them at the moment, they're quite challenging. So for me, I counted it as a blessing. The experience was not very nice because one, you couldn't go to work anymore, so you work from home. The people who lost jobs and every next minute you worried like you could be the next one who is losing a job, so you're not focusing. If you have a family, you keep on wondering, how is my family going to feed? How is my child going to school? How are the bills going to get paid? At a youthful age, at times, those are not things that you might worry of so much because maybe you still get support from parents or relatives. But that does not mean that in the next 10 years, you will not be facing the same challenges. So how do you prepare yourself for the future? But preparing yourself for the future doesn't mean that now you don't care about what your elders or those who are older than you are facing now. Can you have a discussion also with them as we're having discussions about the youth? Can you also have a discussion with probably your parents? How many of us here are able to go and ask their parents, for instance, that how has this COVID-19 affected you? You just see them smiling in the morning over breakfast, but do you really care to understand what they're going through? If they're able to share with you some of the experiences, some of those experiences will help you to learn how you respond to your current issues. That also would be my biggest message to youth. And then as you do that, can you also try and understand those who are younger than you? You probably have younger siblings. They are also having their own challenges and they are responding to them. So how do you connect also with them to understand how they're responding to their challenges? Probably for them, their biggest challenge is that they cannot now interact with their age mates in school. So how are they coping? Are they already adapting to the online way of learning? And how is that affecting their relationships? And how is that going to affect their future interaction or socializing with bigger people? So as youth, let's move out of our youthful age and try and cross-learn. And when you cross-learn, don't cross-learn pointing at fingers that I'm not getting support from these people. No, cross-learn to help them find solutions. The government is fighting to have solutions for the youth. So how are we involved in helping the government find solutions? How are we involved in helping our parents find solutions? How are we involved to find solutions for the future generations? So as we think of future generations, it's not about us. It's about the generation that is coming after us as youth. So these are some of the things that for me have been shaped by where I work, having worked in the community. And I want to share something about my work. So for us in Kenya and the foundation that we work with, we believe that the solutions are homegrown. Solutions don't come outside the borders. Because if any of you have read a book by Damas Moyo, I think she's Zambian. She said that we have dead aid. Aid is no longer going to come; it's dead. And she has got so many reasons why this is happening. So if we want to help ourselves, can we sit down as youth and find those problems, describe those problems, and find those solutions by ourselves? So at the moment we're trying to make youth understand that so much of the solutions lie within their hands. And I would give an analogy of what I had yesterday with a friend on River of Life. I know he was expecting me to have a very fancy drawing, but all I had was my palm on the screen. So he was fascinated. So how is this palm relating to the River of Life? But by the end of the day, and I think Reggie is here, by the end of the day, I told him, the power lies in your palm. You squeeze it, you know what you're holding. You let it open, you know what is going outside there. So all the power lies within you. How do we as youth make sure that some of these powers are not coming from outside? You can control what comes from outside as youth. I am happy that the voices that we have within this online session today is really going to mean something else. And by that, I also mean that let's not limit ourselves within changing the narrative conversation in here. If you leave this conversation today, outside there, how much more information, how much more networks are you going to create so that you learn more from other quarters as well? This is just an insightful meeting for you to think beyond the borders, because nobody is going to reach to you next time and invite you for another meeting like this. It's you to find out where are many other more voices to work with together so that we are heard, so that our issues are solved. Maybe I would share on the chat box one insightful page, one of the organizations that we're currently also working with. You can find more from them. It's called Kids Right, the Kids Right organization. So Kids Right also is trying to bring voices of children and youth to be heard and respond to the climate change, not only to climate change, but to the Sustainable Development Goals from number 1 to 17. And each month, each youth can pick the SDG that they're comfortable with and make a contribution to that SDG. So the SDGs are no longer for governments or multinational organizations. It's for individual youths. I might not have shared personal experiences, but what I'm sharing are experiences that have shaped who I am today, as I plan to exit youth. Probably the next time we're having a meeting like this, I'll be a young adult. But thank you so much for inviting me for this session. Thank you.
Deo, can you please also share one something good or positive about your culture where you live in?
Yes, something positive that I would mention is originally I have been traveling a lot around Kenya, and for me this corona period has made me to come close to family. And one sacred unit that we have to appreciate is family. Most of us as men and as young adults, and probably the youth as well, we are always very far from our family, and we forget the support that we get from that simple unit. So for me, it's brought me closer to family. Quite often I play with my daughter and my spouse, which is a good thing, because that is where you also get inspiration. So as we also condemn the corona, let's also look at the positive aspects of it. Probably right now I have more social fabric with my close family, but also not disregarding that I've been able to communicate and use platforms that previously were limiting, but right now the conversation is open. I can tell you for sure, I can't remember the last time I spoke to Ansar from Dream a Dream, but look at it. The Corona period has made it easy. You probably would be looking at how much money do I have to spend to travel to India, or Ansar to travel to Kenya and come and we have this conversation. Today I'm meeting 35 people here whom I don't know how I would have met them before. And I hope that maybe most of us would have shared a lot, because that is where we also get our inspiration. So Corona has really also helped us to realize how we can move beyond the limits that we created in our mind. Thank you.